Money, money, money. Dollar bills, yo.
Yeah. $1 million Ted.
Yeah,
$1
$1
million
million Ted.
man.
There's CM Punk with a chainsaw now for no reason.
Nice. Is that
Borrowed
chainsaw
that from
Charlie's
Chainsaw.
chainsaw?
Yeah, it is. He borrowed it from him. It's for the weekend. Got some cleaning up to do in the yard.
Yeah, he's got a bit of cutting to do. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Hope everybody is ready to talk about a show that's been 10 years in the making.
Yeah, 10 years in the making.
Of course, X marks the spot for.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, there's the X.
Mania X. Is it the first X-rated WrestleMania? We shall see.
Is it the first appearance of X-Pac? That must be what it is.
Yes, indeed. And of course, I love, as always, our display we have here. Earthquake about the splash something. Don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, got the big boys out.
Yeah, a lot of meat in that ring. It's kind of believable that he could actually be there. You know, it's
yeah. He was at the show, just not that match.
yeah, just not in that exact match. But yeah, Mania 10. I'm looking forward to chatting about this one. I have to say, this is one of my favorite WrestleManias for a couple of matches in particular, which I'm sure if anybody has seen the show, they already know what matches I'm talking about. But it's a great show, and I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, 10 years in the making, or well, in our case, one year in the making since we've done it roundabout since we've done our first one.
Yeah, we smashed through the manias. We've been rocking and rolling through that shit. But you know, there's still more to go after this one, and we'll get there too eventually.
Yeah, plenty of them. And if we run out of them, we've got Rumbles and SummerSlams and other stuff. There's no shortage.
This is a milestone show.
Yeah.
For us and for them. Like this is one of those, like they've made it 10 years. It's going to be the first WrestleMania we're going to be reviewing that does not feature Hulk Hogan at all in any capacity.
Yeah.
So we were our
And
previous
back
9
in
we've always spoken
Madison
about.
Square.
Oh yeah. Back in the home turf. Great looking shot there, a great shot here of the building.
Yeah, it was on their official website. They have like, if you look up WrestleMania by year, they've got like archived photos, but this is an old photo, so it's not, you know, this is pre-HD. That's why it's quite fuzzy looking.
Love it. I love to see it. And you know, the garden, you know, as Vince McMahon Sr. was kind of famous for saying, you know, the garden was kind of like the measuring stick when it came to how WWF business was performing. It was their home arena essentially. So if you could sell out the garden, if you could pack out the garden, business was doing good. And on this night, at least, business was good.
It's definitely doing good. And one of the things I like about this Mania is like, well, often you get, often the first match is like rubbish, or it's not fair. Often it's a warm-up match, you know, it's not the thing. But this Mania starts off really, really strong. Of course, I'm talking about the all-time classic Hercules versus the Egyptian. Quite a match.
All-time classic. The Egyptian's physique is 100% natural.
It is 100% natural.
The ancient Egyptians had excellent training techniques.
He did have a bit of a beef with Hercules, of course, and run-ins there. And in more recent years, he's retired, but got into a bit of a drunken argument with Ric Flair apparently recently, and trying to get some drinks, and got kicked out of a bar and a restaurant, having some arguments with the old Egyptian. Which, if anyone's wondering, what the fuck are you talking about, you idiots? There's a reference to Ric Flair earlier this year, got kicked out of a restaurant, and the footage got put up by someone's cell phone who worked there on, I don't know, YouTube or internet, and the auto captions, he was saying dipshit to someone, and it mistranslated the caption into the Egyptian. So they talked about a few podcasts like Dutch Mantel and Jim Cornette both covered it quite well, and it was hilarious to actually hear about this Egyptian, because there were no Egyptians. Look at the South, America. There was no Egyptians in this place. It was just a mistranslate, and then people were going online going, "Oh, Ric Flair's a racist" and other nonsense. And like, no, you idiots! It's mistranslated what he was saying.
Well, I suppose, to be fair, we don't know for definite that there were no Egyptians in the restaurant. There may have been one somewhere.
There could have been a tag team waiting outside to beat him up in the car park. We don't know. I wasn't there. I can't disprove that.
Yeah, this new tag team on the scene, the Pharaohs.
But yeah, there was a dark match for the pre-show, Bushwhackers versus Heavenly Bodies. No video for that one. Like some of these dark matches you can find on YouTube, there was some very grainy footage that lasts about 20 seconds of this, but you couldn't even. It was from like way at the back of the arena, and you can't make out anything. It's like looking at two little stick figures smeared through Vaseline on the screen. So there was nothing usable.
Well, like I do enjoy the Heavenly Bodies, but if it means not having to sit through a Bushwhackers match, then I'm happy enough with the dark match.
You don't like their underarm motors. They like to get their underarm motors right in your face every time.
Yeah, they'll bury your face in those armpits.
They will.
One of my all-time favorite Bret Hart matches, one of my all-time favorite opening matches to a wrestling event or a pay-per-view, and just probably one of my just genuinely favorite matches ever is this opening match between Bret Hart and his brother Owen Hart. But of course, before we get into that, we are introduced by Vince McMahon. He welcomes us to Madison Square Garden, and Little Richard.
Nice computer graphics going there. The old intros.
Yes. The national anthem is being sung, and we're whisked to ringside where our commentary duo of Jerry the King Lawler and Vince McMahon give us a rundown of what's going to happen tonight. And we get a nice little kind of recap of all the events that have kind of led up to this match between Owen and Bret. And this is one of those stories where they really, really took their time and planned out this entire feud really well, because it unfolds over many, many months before we actually get to this WrestleMania match between Owen and Bret. And it's really a classic tale of a younger brother being jealous of his older brother and, trying to step out on his own and break away from his brother's shadow and be his own man. And that kind of sounds noble enough in some ways, but in the way Owen Hart is presented, he does it in totally heel-like fashion, which I'm sure we'll get into, and he's really great at.
What a good build-up, and they've gotten, by the time we get to Mania 10, they're getting really good at doing like the recaps and editing the video segments together. So it helps if you haven't seen the bits and pieces. Like it really helps build up and give you kind of. It's like if I watched episode 24, Jack Bear's like previously on 24, and here's all the bits you missed in last week's episode. They're getting much better at recapping stuff like that in a very professional way, because it can be hard to follow a lot of the wrestling stuff. Like when there's just so many shows and so many events per year by this point, it's like nobody can see all of it. I mean, unless you don't watch anything else, man. It's like it's hard to follow all of it. But and we did have magazines, of course, print magazines back then too. You could kind of follow month to month and year to year if you didn't see a particular event or show the kind of overall story of it.
Yeah, and magazines, especially the official WWF magazine, like they were crucial to a lot of people, myself included, for actually filling in the gaps of stuff that you didn't know or you didn't get a chance to watch.
I remember they used to have like in the 80s, the early 80s, they had independent press or whoever, wrestling reporters. But eventually, McMahon got sick of that. He didn't like them saying anything unfavorable about it. So he booted them all out and said, no, we're doing our own official magazine, only our official writer, reporter, photographer, whatever. and that was it. But it also became another really good source of revenue. But it kind of started to stop people saying bad shit about it. They didn't want, bad publicity in it.
Yeah, and like the WWF magazine, especially in its earliest incarnations, everything was written from that, kayfabe point of view, where they would discuss wrestlers as if they actually were the characters they played on television, and everything was very like storyline orientated. Which, when you're a kid, though, that's great because it kind of really immerses you in
Yeah.
that world. So even though it began as a project to kind of minimize negative press, it did turn into something positive as being like an extra kind of avenue that they could like boost their storylines and just get their name out there. But for those who have not watched this match or who are not aware of the events leading up to this match, it all began the year before at the Survivor Series, where the Hart brothers were wrestling Shawn Michaels and his Knights in a Survivor Series tag match, and the Hart team ends up winning. But there is one elimination on their team, and that elimination is Owen Hart, and he does not take that elimination well. He comes out at the end of the match and he's kind of shoving Brett and giving out to him, and they have a little bit of a falling out in the ring while the other brothers try and jump in and separate them. So a little bit after that, there's a match set up at the Royal Rumble, with the idea being that Brett and Owen, they're going to mend their issues, they're going to bury the hatchet, and they're actually going to team up together as a tag team, and they're going to take on the tag team champions, the Quebecers, and they're going to go for the gold together as brothers. But unfortunately, in that match, things do not go to plan, and the Hart brothers end up losing the match. And Owen does not take this well. He blames Brett for the loss, and he attacks him in the ring after the match, and like he famously picks his leg out from under his leg, which is a famous Owen Hart
Yeah.
line. And he really goes to work on Brett. So that kind of sets up the big split between the two Hart brothers, and along with a few other little twists and turns along the way, we find ourselves here at WrestleMania 10 and the first ever brother versus brother. It's Hart versus Hart. It's Owen versus Brett, and we're about to have ourselves a classic wrestling match.
Yeah, it's a kick-ass match. And if you did miss some of the lead up, it's available on Coliseum home videos. They've told us numerous times in all these flashbacks. So we'll definitely push on the old VHS market pretty hard as well.
Yeah, gotta sell those videos. I have to say, I absolutely love the entranceway for this
Yeah.
WrestleMania. I love it's the big X, and the X separates when
Yeah.
the people make their entrance. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's like I like seeing those smaller. It feels kind of a bit more personal, a little kind of runway, and the same like the very first episodes of Raw, and the I don't know, I forget exactly where it is, in New York or whatever. But it's got the same kind of small little runway, and you get that kind of like fluoro multicolored WWF, which I always associate with this era.
Yeah, and especially when they do shows from Madison Square Garden, they always kind of have that shorter entrance and way to the ring. So yeah, it always feels a little bit more
I like the shorter
intimate.
entrance. Like I'm not. I mean, there's a place and a time for the big spectacle ones, but a lot of and this isn't going to be me shitting on modern wrestling because I think they're actually doing pretty good at the moment compared to some of the previous years. But the big arena spectacles, like that's okay. But when it's like every other bloody show has a massive lasers and light shows and fireworks, and there's more lights and shit than there are, you can't even see the person. They're just this little tiny dot in the background. I like actually being able to see the wrestler and it's not getting blinded by 10 million lasers in your eyes and stuff. It just gets like overwhelming. They just like use that kind of overuse all that stuff so much now. It doesn't feel special.
It's exactly, you took the words
Like
right
used
out
to
of
be
my mouth.
Undertaker had the special entrance that felt special, but even that became kind of a bit overused. And
Yeah, now everybody gets the full pyro and
yeah,
special effects and all the bells and whistles.
even if you're just
Not
the
here
mean
on this
street
night
posse
though.
turning up popcorn, you're going to get lasers and fireworks and god.
So we hear the two excellent entrance themes. Of course, we got the Owen Hart high energy theme and the classic
Yeah,
Bret
two
the
of the
Hitman
best.
Hart theme. Love them, absolutely love them. And I just love this whole, like, obviously, look, I'm not going to even attempt to try and go through this match blow by blow, even though I've watched it many, many times. But it really is, without exaggeration, it's like a technical masterpiece in many aspects of it. But it's also a real emotional back and forth thrill ride where, you know, any time you think that one brother kind of has the upper hand,
Yeah, he's
the
got
other
it,
one
but he
manages.
doesn't.
Yeah, they're constantly reversing each other's moves, and it's like they can read
There's
each other's
even some of them.
minds.
There's like a reversal of a reversal of a reversal.
It's so good, and even the way the match kind of almost ends in that fashion as well, where it's like, you know, Brett was going for the victory rule or the electric chair, but Owen reverses it into the victory rule. Like, it's a very just clever, quick finish, and it's a massive, massive deal for Owen Hart to get the big win over his brother Brett, because this really starts to really kind of move him up the ladders and kind of just build a lot of kind of stock in his character as well, because it was a big test. If he had lost this match, you know, you couldn't have really went much further with the whole angle and him as a character. But the fact that he beat Brett on this
Yeah,
night, it was a massive, massive deal. Massive deal. Just a great
yeah, it was
match.
definitely.
An absolute great match.
I like to get to see Owen in this era because I feel like that both done well from the other Calgary and other wrestling stuff, and it's great they get to be together on screen here and then off screen talking and planning what they can do for other matches, and I like that they're really building up Owen in this era.
Yeah, it's even though we've seen Owen a couple of times as we reviewed previous manias, like we first got a look at him as the Blue Blazer during WrestleMania
Yeah,
6, and
now he's the Rocket.
I think he turned up. It was either Mania 7 or Mania 8, I believe. He's like wrestling Skinner in a really quick match on one of the cards as well. So now is our first proper long Owen Hart match where we can really kind of appreciate just how good he actually was in the ring. And you know, even though both brothers they share a lot of similar moves and such, but they're still very different in terms of their styles. Like, Bret is a lot more ground based and submission based, whereas Owen's a lot quicker and a bit more of a high flyer. So it's a really nice
Yeah.
contrast in styles as well between the two Hart brothers.
Yeah, I love his little like rolls and flips and somersaults and stuff. He's just like so quick, like a bloody circus acrobat.
And it really is. It's like for an opening match to a show. It's you can't really get much better than
And you
this. So
can
it's
really
very
feel the
hard.
energy in the crowd when they come out. Like it's that smaller runway. They're walking out. They're like high fiving on both sides, all the adults and the kids, and you can see loads of pink in the audience, like pink Bret Hart. This, but also Owens. Obviously, they're both wearing pink and black here. But loads of signs in that audience that, like, they love these guys, and everyone's like super psyched to see the match.
Yeah, there's real emotion for it, and yeah, just a real buzz about the two brothers finally locking up, and it really is a testament to the good work that the company actually did in building this match and letting this story play out over the months leading up to the event. It really paid off on the night, and of course, you know, part of the story of this night is this is not Bret Hart's only match on the show. He's going to be wrestling
Yeah,
again later on for the WWF Championship, which, you know, we'll get to that when we get to it. But it definitely it makes this a very, very memorable show indeed.
yeah, and
And yeah,
Owen plays it up too. Like, not just that he's going to be more than one match, but he's like, not only am I going to beat my brother, but he's going to be like wasted and not be able to be any good in his other match later on, and he's like
yeah,
happy about it.
he's going to punish him. Not going to beat him. He's just going to punish him. You know, and it's yeah, terrific, terrific match. Excellent story. And like I said, it's not over. We'll see both these men again later on in the evening in different capacities. And I suppose you kind of after watching a absolute classic match like that, you do have to be brought down a bit if you're the audience there in the building. And what better way to bring you down than to have a comedy mixed tag team match with Bam Bam Bigelow and Luna Vachon fighting Doink and Dink. Perfect way to settle your spirits after watching an old time wrestling classic.
It's
And
definitely a
look,
bit
I have to
calmer.
say,
Definitely a bit calmer and going more for laughs than serious.
I do like Bam Bam Bigelow. I do like Luna Vachon. I think they are good on screen together. I think this match is a little bit of a waste of
Yeah,
their
yeah,
talents on the night.
for sure.
Um, this version of Doink as well, I believe, is the Steve Kern version of Doink. So it's
Uh-huh.
not the original Matt Bourne Doink, and you can kind of see straight away that it's not as good. He's a comedic baby face, slapstick gag character now. The whole evil clown thing has been dropped.
Yeah,
So it just totally ruined the character in my opinion.
it's no
Just
more
never
Stephen
really
King
did
it
much.
now. It's just like the clown from the Christmas parade.
Exactly, yeah. He's not a scary clown, he's just a clown. Which don't get me
Just
wrong,
the
I'm
clown.
sure if you have a phobia of clowns, he's probably still scary, but
No, I prefer the
you know,
crazy Joe Davola type clowns and Seinfeld that are going to like kick you in the head in the park.
I feel sorry for little Dink in this match because towards the end of the match there's a moment where he's supposed to avoid splashes from both Bam Bam and Luna. And he does manage to avoid the Bam Bam splash, but he's too slow rolling out of the way of Luna's one, and she more or less just like
Mhm.
knees him in the stomach. She just crashes
Oh,
down on top of him. Poor little guy. But look, it's one of those matches you're not supposed to take it seriously. It's a little bit of gravity to just give the audience something to look at after that.
time to
Excellent,
get your
excellent
popcorn
opening
match.
match. Exactly. Yeah, I'm always a bit funny with the mixed tags as well. They're always a little weird for me. Don't get me wrong, I've seen a few good ones, but
Yeah,
sometimes they're hard to pull off.
yeah, I agree. So next up, we got Macho Man versus Crush.
Yes. And we also have the Bill Clinton lookalike in the audience as
Yeah,
well, who we got a
except
glimpse
his
of
nose is
before this match.
exceptionally long.
Yeah,
Pinocchio Clinton, they call him.
I don't know who this guy is or what his real name is, but yeah, look, he
I guess
definitely
he's an
nails the
actual
voice.
actor or impersonator or something because he's very professional, but he's clearly a fake Clinton.
And it's funny that of course the taxman IRS is sitting beside him in the box, Of course he'd be a massive fan of the president. And yeah, I know the McMahons hated the Clintons, so they probably always liked poking fun at them, any opportunity they got. So they definitely did a little bit of that on this night. But look, we're about to witness something historic here as well. We're about to witness the final appearance of the Macho Man Randy Savage on a
Yeah,
WrestleMania, and he's going to go hell for leather in his full count anywhere match with Crush. What did you think of this one?
I always like Macho Man in anything, and I enjoy the match. But like Crush, I just like he's a competent wrestler, but I always feel like the gimmick they never get quite right with him. He's in Demolition, and then he's Crush, and then he's later on he's in those biker gangs and the Attitude Era, and I actually feel kind of like bad for him as far as they just don't present him in the best way. Like he's clearly fucking strong as hell, and he picks up Macho like warrior style near the start and just like throws him in the guardrail.
Yeah. No, he's a big jacked up dude. And while this may not be the high point of Macho Man's career, it's probably the high point of Crush's career. Like this is probably the most high profile match
Hmm.
he's ever been in as, as singles. And
Yeah, because he's always like a background guy. Then he's a tag team guy. Then he's in singles and early Raw episodes and that. And sometimes I think I can't remember who he fights. Sometimes he's fighting like Tatonka or well, the first time I seen him, I didn't know who he was. And then I was like, oh, he's this guy. Who was this guy? Because he had so many gimmicks and characters.
Falls Count to Anywhere stipulation in this is it's a little bit contrived compared to other versions of this match that would follow later. Like the Falls Count to Anywhere it's usually just a case where you can pin or submit somebody anywhere in the building and then the match ends. Whereas in this version of the match, you can pin or submit them outside of the ring, but then they actually have 60 seconds to get up and get back to the ring. And then if they do manage
That's
to do
weird.
that, the match can continue. So it's a bit of a strange little added stipulation that modern fans may not be used to if you're kind of thinking of modern versions of Falls Count Anywhere matches. But aside from that little bit of a drawback with the rules, it's a pretty entertaining match, and I am glad this Macho Man managed to have his like final Mania moment and kind of go out on somewhat of a high note. He does win the match. It's a pretty inventive finish where he actually ties Crush up by the legs
Yeah,
and
he
leaves
hoists
him
them
hanging
up.
backstage,
That's
and then
scaffolding.
he runs back to the ring to make the count. So it's a pretty inventive finish, and I suppose a
So
nice
that's
little
why he
send
sprints
off.
back, because I didn't quite understand the business about him running back to the ring. Because at the start of the match, I didn't hear like the rules or whatever.
Yeah, it's that 60-second thing where you have 60 seconds to get to the ring. So yeah, he legs it back while Crush is tied up, and that's how he gets to win the match. So it's the Mania Swan song of Mr. Savage, and we will miss Randy. We'll miss him in the ring. We'll miss him on commentary. And like Johnny said earlier on, when we do run out of Manias, there are other shows to cover. So someday we will
Bash at
get
the
to talk
beach.
about Macho Man again. But for now, take a
Off the
good look at him
Baywatch and
because
Bash at the beach.
this is his last hurrah at WrestleMania. So farewell, Macho Man. We enjoyed you and your crazy costumes and crazy interviews and just general craziness that seemed to follow you around.
The camera over
Great
here.
dude.
Oh, around, turn around, back around again. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Fucked my throat up. But we got a little bit of footage here from the WWF Fan Fest, and I am
First
so
official one.
delighted. I am delighted that you managed to get the shot
Can
of
you
the
pick?
Hasbro booth.
Can you pick what is like? We'll look at these pictures about these. I like seeing the toys, but other than that, see if you can find what's my favorite nonsensical thing. And I'm still here. I'm just gonna like pause the camera, but I'm listening to you.
I'm guessing it's either going to be the sumo wrestling in the big sumo suits, or the whole get your photograph taken inside the Undertaker's casket, and possibly also with Paul Bearer in the picture if you're lucky enough. I'd imagine one of
That's it.
those two
Just I
things.
love that there's all these activities and things going on, and notably you don't see the wrestlers. It's just like I don't know. This is like the theme park attractions. Come and do all the stuff, or go to the science museum and have fun with the family. And then poor Paul Bearer is just stuck in that fucking coffin all day, just standing there in the background. I hope they're paying him for that, like not extra, not because who knows how fucking long he was standing around there.
Would be pretty fun to get in the ring and get a WWF referee to count a 3 count if you're wrestling with a
Yeah,
sibling, I suppose, as well. You could try running
Sumo
the
suits are
ropes. I'm
fun though.
assuming,
Like they have ones, adult size ones of those. They are fun.
yeah, but yeah, that's that toy booth though, the Hasbro booth.
Oh, I was
That's
drooling when I saw that. I was like, oh.
and that must have been something that kids found confusing at the time, because at that point, this is 1994.
Mhm.
Lots of the wrestlers they have lined up there, they're all from the earlier years
I
release.
can
I think
see
it's every
Hacksaw just
wrestler
because
they've
he's holding a
released.
2x4, so it must be Hacksaw.
And like a lot of those figures, you probably couldn't really easily find them anymore by the time
No.
this booth was
Yeah,
set
it's
up.
almost like a museum rather than a shop, isn't it? Showing those now because it's like they're several years old. Definitely
That's
shows the
awesome.
contrast to other stuff we'll talk about later this year, to like your Starcades and Bunkhouse Stampede and stuff. Is like definitely pushing for the kids and the family audience, and you're not going for lots of big blood and guts NWA style.
Yeah, and this fan fest would pretty much become the blueprint for what they'd continue to go do
Is this
for
what they now call like
years.
access and that now?
Yes, it's that type of thing where if they're having a big event or a big show in an area,
Right,
they
it's like
might actually turn
Comic-Con
it
for
into like,
wrestling, where just, come and get your
yes,
signatures and all that shit.
yeah, turn it into a multi-day event and
Yeah.
sell a load of merch and bleed more
Make your
money out of
poor
the
wrestlers sit
fans.
there signing and then go and have matches as well and be completely exhausted.
Yeah, sitting there signing autographs and just like next, next.
Yeah.
My back is sore, my neck is sore. I just want to lie in my hotel until I have to wrestle my next match, but I'm fucking here signing autographs for kids. But yeah, it looked cool. The WrestleMania 10 one looked cool. It's really, for me, I would just love to have gone to that toy booth and just looked at those Hasbros up close
Yeah.
behind the glass. I'm sure
You know, it'd
many a
be cool
child
if
would
you
just,
get like a photo of like Paul Bearer and Undertaker and have like Undertaker holding his little figure. That'd be good. It's like, how do you feel now? You fucking sellout. No, it'd be awesome. It'd be awesome. A photo of the vintage figure.
it's weird as well. It's like, oh, look at these parents. They're just taking photos of their children in a coffin.
Yeah.
Here's an
It
image
is
to
a very
celebrate
different
kids.
tone to all the other images, like all bright and happy. Then it's like, oh, there's a fat man in a coffin. Okay, we usually don't leave our children in places like that.
Yeah. Here, little Timmy,
You'll
climb
be
inside the
fine,
coffin with his
children.
dad. Yeah, looks like it
It's
was
going to give
fun.
them gingerbread and they'll be fine.
Yeah, just don't close the lid on that casket. Everything should be tip
Can you
top.
imagine if they did, like, and, like the music comes on and they close the lid and kids are just like screaming for their lives?
Yeah, I was thinking there as well with the kids that are like pinning each other in the ring or whatever. I'm sure that was an insurance nightmare. They probably had loads of guys like, "Don't run off the ropes, don't take a bump in the
Yeah,
ring, just pose for the photo and get out."
yeah, exactly. Take your photo and get out.
But here we have the WWF Women's Championship on the line as Alundra Blaze takes on Leilani Kai.
Not a lot of
And
competitors for that championship, unfortunately.
no, yeah, in fact, they're so shallow in the pool of competitors that they had to go all the way back to WrestleMania 1 and take one of the women who was competing at WrestleMania 1 and put her in the match here. It's crazy to think that Leilani Kai wrestled on the first Mania, and here she is now 10 years later going for gold against Alundra Blaze. And it's a very short match. There's not too much to it, but I have to say, given the standards at the time and just given the amount of time that they were allotted on the show, both women do like a good job. They have a good showing. It's short and sweet. Alundra Blaze, who some may know as Medusa, is pretty over with the crowd in Madison Square Garden to give her a nice
Very,
little
very
reception.
athletic. I'm always impressed at her like suplexes and that.
Yeah. Oh, look, she's one of the all-time greats when it comes to women's wrestling. Unfortunately, in the WWF, she didn't always get the most flattering of run, and she
Yeah,
didn't always have the best opponents. And like you said, there wasn't too much of a division for her
yeah, it just was
to
a
work
bad
with.
time. I mean, even by the time we get to late '90s, 2000, we had the whole Divas era, and even then, it was a lot of TNA, not much wrestling, and eventually we got to actual circle back around to actual women's wrestling, and not just like being, I don't know, like managers and whatever, and coming back. Eventually we got onto like your fucking your Becky Lynch's and your Charlotte Flairs and all that, and you got all the glitz and glamour, but got the wrestling as well.
We see a nice sweet shot of classy Freddie Blassie and Captain Lou Albano
Yeah.
in the audience as well. I think it's funny. I'll mention it here now before we get on to the next match.
Mhm.
Throughout the show, they keep playing what they call highlights from previous WrestleManias to celebrate
Yeah.
10 years of WrestleMania. And they really go out of their way to try to not show Hulk Hogan footage. It's
I
like,
didn't even notice that because I was watching rewatching this again yesterday, but I was also not open, organizing stuff in the lounge, so I was kind of watching but missing little bits, and I saw bits of those clips and highlights, and oh yeah, there's that one, and there's Andre, and it's like, yeah, I didn't notice that they hadn't actually edited
like
out
there's
Hogan.
like there's some manias where they can't avoid talking about him, but like even here, look, we see in that picture, the highlight from WrestleMania 5 is Morton Downey Jr. blowing smoke in Roddy Piper's
Yeah,
face. which kind of is a bit odd to pick that as a highlight, where on that same show, Hogan was wrestling Macho Man for the world title. It's kind of like, what? But yeah, they do that a few times throughout the night where they'll pick something really mundane and just random to talk about instead of talking about the fact that, well, actually the focus of this show was Hulk Hogan, but they're just trying to minimize the amount of Hogan talk in this show because he's part of the old generation and we're all about the new generation now. And speaking of the new generation, we got a new generation tag team here of Men on a Mission, accompanied by Oscar. Men on a Mission, of course, are Mabel and Mo, and you know the very big, wide tag team. Their manager Oscar, who comes out wrapping them to the ring. We've actually seen him before in this show. Did you know that?
Who is he? Whoever. I only know that Mabel, whoever's been. He's been so many
So
bloody characters. But who are the
Oscar,
other guys that I'm not familiar with?
we saw Oscar briefly last year at WrestleMania 9 when we were talking about WrestleMania 9, and he was just a fan in the front row.
Uh-huh.
He's just there in attendance. And as the story goes, apparently, Oscar was staying in the same hotel as Vince McMahon when he was in Las Vegas for WrestleMania 9, and the two of them met in an elevator, and Oscar did a little rap for him. And Vince McMahon was really impressed, so he decided to hire him and make him a manager of Men on a Mission. So a guy who went to see WrestleMania 9 as a fan ended up meeting the owner of the
That's crazy.
company in an elevator and then getting hired. And now here he is the following year on WrestleMania 10 as an actual performer. So that's a pretty
I do
crazy
like
story.
the entrance, and it's got that same energy like when we had Rikishi with like Grandmaster Sexay and Too Cool and whatever, Brian Christmas. He used to come out and do all the dance and all that at the start of the thing, and the crowd. It feels like that. But then the match, I'm not really into it. But it feels like the energy at the start of it's good when they're coming out.
Yeah, the crowd go along with the whole Man on the Missions wave your arm deal and,
Yeah.
whoa. But yeah, and look, I like the team of the Quebecers. I think they were a good tag team. I also like Johnny Polo, who would go on to
Mhm.
become Raven of ECW and WCW
Oh, really?
fame.
I had no idea who the Johnny Polo guy was.
Yeah,
And you hardly even see his face in the event. You only see him kind of off the side here and there. Well, no, I certainly
and
know who Raven is. I've seen, some of his matches and interviews in it.
this is definitely another one of those matches, like the previous match for the women's championship. It's relatively short and sweet, and also pretty forgettable. But it's not something where I
You know how
not
forgettable is
complaining.
that on that Ted DiBiase podcast, he sent me a clip earlier, and he was talking about the different guests and stuff there, and his co-host in the podcast is like, and who else is there? It's like Donnie Wahlberg. It's like, who? What did he do? It's like, so he was in the New Kids on the Block. He's like, what? It's like, he literally did not remember who. And then they're both going, why was he there again? And he's like, yeah, exactly. Why was he there? He
I
doesn't
think at
really
the
have much
time
to
as
do.
well,
And I like
he was
Donnie Wahlberg.
presenting
I've got
as a,
nothing against him, but it's like he doesn't really get anything to do.
I think he had a TV show at the time as well, like that he was presenting. I don't know on what channel it was on, but he was like a host. So he was still kind of current in 1994
He was in the
as
car
a
park,
as
so
a
we just
celebrity.
pulled him in.
And look, at least Donnie Wahlberg, they give him a job to do, and he does it well. Like he's pretty good at doing the announcing for the match he does it
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
Um, unlike Burt Reynolds, who just looks like he's drunk and just doesn't want to be there. He just wants to go home.
I do feel like Mania 10 is like, I mean, there's less, as they've gone on from the original first few, it was less of an emphasis on celebrity guests. It was more like, well, we're established now. We've got cable and subscriptions and pay-per-view and other shit. So we don't have to rely so much on the big pomp and circumstance, but we still have them here and there. Some are announcers, some are just sitting in the audience. But this one just feels like such a random grab bag of people who are there. And some of them you only see briefly for a few seconds. And then, I mean, other ones like here, Bert and Donnie, we actually get to see on screen and talking for a bit. But it feels very random, and it feels like they're just underserved in the way they use them.
Yeah, and it's yeah, it almost feels like anybody they could get who was local, who was just
Yeah,
who would be there on the day. It's like, look, this is the money, show up. like Burt Reynolds especially, like, and I know I made that kind of remark about him being drunk. I think from the stories I hear, like, you know, 123 Kid, aka X Pac, aka Sean Waltman, he's like, yeah, he like Burt Reynolds was walking around backstage like he was piss drunk, you know, just having a good time, and like, you know, he probably didn't know where he was half the time.
I like better when you've got celebrities who are actually in the audience who actually like wrestling and want to watch it, and like, or you pan over and it's like, oh, there's fucking Chuck Norris in the audience, and like, and you only see him for a second, but he's actually there watching the show. He's not just, I mean, there's ones where he's guest, but there's other ones he's actually just watching a show.
There's Macaulay
That
Culkin
excites me more
beside
because
him.
it's kind of like train spotting. You know, you just see him for a bit, and like, oh, did I really see him there? You know.
Yeah, it's not as forced. It's not that kind of, oh, love us, give
Yeah.
us celebrity endorsement.
And there's always with certain American celebrities, there's people. I mean, sure as hell I know who Bert is. I know, you know, like all sorts of classic films of the '70s. I mean, in '80s, not as much, but you know, fucking Cannibal Run and shit like that. Wahlberg, of course. I mean, when I was in primary school, new kids were like the shit. It's like you're hearing that everywhere, especially all the girls are like, oh, you know, the new kids, and so I certainly knew who he was. But sometimes these American celebrities, I don't know who some of them are. They're just like real obscure, and I don't know who the hell they were, what they did.
And, you know, Donnie, like I said, he does his announcing, and for our first WWF World Title match of the night, he is doing the announcing, and look, he does a pretty good job. He doesn't botch it. He um he calls Mr. Perfect Mr. Perfect, which sounds pretty funny as
Mister,
well.
that's Mister.
But yeah, he does a good job. And for this match, I mentioned Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect is going to be the special referee for this match between Lex Luger and Yokozuna, and he comes out wearing a full striped outfit. So he's got the stripy referee T-shirt and also the matching
Yeah,
tracky bottoms as well, which looks pretty funny. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. James E. Cornette, one of the best wrestling managers of all time, is here at ringside. He's Yokozuna's American spokesperson, and he's looking great in his
it's an amazing
ringside
outfit.
attire. Amazing outfit, absolutely amazing outfit. He's got a gold tennis racket, just looks brilliant. And I'll say one thing about this match. This is one of those matches where people always remember that it's on the show, but they never really talk about it. The reason being that the match later on that's going to end the night, which we'll get to in a little while, is the kind of the main story of the show. But I do have to say, this match is actually a pretty darn good match. You know, and Lex Luger, he does sometimes be criticized for not being the best worker and being a bit awkward at times in the ring and this and that. I actually think he does a very good job here. He's energized. He's doing lots of like diving clotheslines. He does like a top rope crossbody at one stage. And Yoko, of course, who's also a freak of nature. He's always able to move unnaturally fast for a man that big. It just we definitely get a nice back and forth world title match here. But yeah, you kind of have to feel a little bit of sympathy for Lex Luger, I suppose, because at one point he was in fact going to be the man scheduled to beat Yokozuna for the WWF Championship, but
Oh yeah,
you know it did not happen, and the reason it didn't happen was you know, as the story goes, the Royal Rumble you know, that year it ended with both Bret Hart and Lex Luger eliminating each other at the same time. So for the first time ever, the Royal Rumble was a draw, and they kind of did this thing after the match where Howard Finkel, the announcer, he announces first of all he announces that Lex Luger has won the Rumble, and the crowd kind of go, yay! They're kind of semi excited and happy. But then Howard Finkel announces that Bret Hart has won the Royal Rumble, and the crowd really popped. There's a big, loud eruption. So as the story goes, this was kind of some live market research that WWF were doing at the time, and it kind of gave Vince McMahon the iggy that Bret Hart was the more popular of the two baby faces. Therefore, it should be Bret Hart be the one that actually goes on to eventually win the championship. So that's how we get here. We've Luger. He's going up against Yokozuna in the first title match of the night. And unfortunately for him, thanks to some shenanigans and outside interference from Mr. Fuji and Jim Cornette, and some questionable refereeing and officiating from Mr. Perfect, Lex Luger, unfortunately, on this occasion, is not successful. He does not become the WWF champion, and Yokozuna will continue on to defend his belt later on against Bret Hart at the end of the night. But Luger, he's been screwed out of the belt. He's angry with Mr. Perfect. He runs backstage and confronts him. And all of this, apparently, this whole backstage interaction, it was all done to set up a feud between Lex Luger and Mr. Perfect. But unfortunately, that feud never ended up happening. Perfect would injure his ankle shortly after this event and would be gone. And so nothing ever came about it. They did the kind of screwy finish and set up this whole deal, and then nothing kind of came about it. And Lex, he'll get a couple of more cracks at the belt, but he's never going to win the belt. And it's kind of, I suppose, he's put in his place here in the sense that he lost the match. He lost his opportunity to win the big one. He's choked for the final time, and we're not going to see Lex Luger win a world title until he goes back to the WCW in a couple of years' time.
Like, here's another one I remember in the Midway arcade game. You had like Bam Bam Bigelow, Yokozuna, Lex Luger, Shawn, Taker, Bret Hart. So, he's one of these guys that was getting a good push, but then where did it sort of go, or it didn't go? I actually purchased an action figure of Luger the other day, and then 2 days later I cancelled it and bought one of the Steiner brothers because it was the last one and it was on sale. I was like, fuck it, I'll get Luger next time. I was like, oh man, because he was wearing like the kind of American shorts like this, or because some of the other ones, there's heaps of different figures in that, and you want to get the one with the classic outfit or the one you like the most. But yeah, no, I like Luger, man. He's always puts on a good show.
Yeah, I like Luger, and it's one of those things. He gets a lot of stick for the run he had in the WWF, but it wasn't his fault really that worked out the way it did. Like, at
No,
the
there
end
was
of the
so much
day,
going on behind the scenes, and so much changing of the old guard and new guard as far as what wrestlers were staying and going,
and he'd go on to revitalize himself in the late '90s in WCW.
he had a good run in WCW
He had a
again.
good
I mean,
run.
there's all shenanigans over there, but he had a good run late '80s and then again in the mid post '90s in WCW as well.
Before the next match starts, we get a quick little altercation between Harvey Whippleman and Howard Finkel. And
Yeah.
Harvey Whippleman, he's making fun of Howard Finkel's new hair that he got from the hair club for men, and Howard gets annoyed and he shoves Harvey down, and Adam Bomb comes out to lay the law down on the Fink. But then Earthquake comes out and he pretty much smashes Adam Bomb in like one or two moves and beats him straight away. So that whole match is done with, it's
That's
like
what you call a
like
literal squash match.
Oh yeah, he got
Earthquake.
squashed. He got flattened like a pancake.
Like a pancake,
Yeah.
And
Very,
before we
very
get on to that other one there, do have a little bit of inside tip here, little clip. We'll check out this one here. It's just audio because there's no picture, but check out this one here.
So this guy comes walking around the fucking corner with a great big tiger on a chain right onto my property. I said, fella, what the fuck are you doing with a goddamn tiger on a chain on my fucking property? He just looks back at me and carries on like I didn't even say anything. Well, I went back in the fucking house, shut all the damn doors, and called the police. I mean, what the fuck else was I going to do in that situation? It was not a majestic fucking day, I tell you. It got me all riled up first thing in the fucking morning. So this guy comes...
But inside baseball there, Cornette was not happy behind the scenes at home.
No, and if you want to know the full story about that, you're going to have to chat with our friend Bjorn Jorgensen to, get the full details.
I will be chatting to him sometime in the next fortnight. We're going to do a what are we doing again? Oh yeah, we're going to do like special. We're going to talk about like Undertaker Kane kind of special.
mystical characters.
Majestic characters.
Yes, the majestic characters. Exactly.
Speaking of majestic characters, we got Razor Ramon here and Diesel, who's briefly on screen for little portions in the background, and the ladder, of course, and the belts and the ladder are kind of like the star of this match.
Yeah, and what a match it is. Here we have the ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship, the undisputed Intercontinental Championship. So, for those who are confused as to why there are two Intercontinental Championship belts, the reason is Shawn Michaels was the Intercontinental Champion. He was the official champion, but he was suspended. I believe in real life, it is said that he had failed a drugs test. He was sent home. Management asked that he send the belt back, but Michaels did not send the belt back. He felt that he should have actually not failed the drugs test because he didn't think he was on any drugs that should fail a drug test at the time. So
basically they had any drug testing at all this time.
he refused to give the belt back. So on WWF television, what they did was they had a battle royal to kind of determine a new champion. And the way it worked with the battle royal was that the last two people in the ring in the battle royal will go on to have a singles match for the vacant Intercontinental Championship. So the last two people in that battle royal, as I recall, were Razor Ramon and the model Rick Martel. So on the following Raw after that battle royal, Razor and Rick Martel have a match for the vacant Intercontinental Championship, and Razor wins. So Razor is now officially the Intercontinental Champion. However, shortly after this, Shawn Michaels returns to the WWF, and he still has in his possession his Intercontinental Championship. So now we have two wrestlers going around claiming to be Intercontinental Champion. Obviously, this cannot fly. There can only be one champion. So this leads us to the ladder match for the undisputed Intercontinental Championship. So both belts are hung above the ring and raised high. And Razor and Shawn Michaels, who's accompanied by Big Daddy Cool Diesel, aka Kevin Nash. They're going to do battle
Super
in
Shredder.
one of the most famous matches. Yeah, Super Shredder himself, Kevin Nash, is here at WrestleMania 10. And like Johnny mentioned, he's only here for a short period of time. He interferes early on in the match and he's caught out by the referee, who then orders him to leave ringside. So it just comes down to
The camera hardly shows him even when he comes out in the entrance. So it's like, come on, let us see him.
Yeah, and he's it's crazy to think that Diesel, who this year is really just playing a bit part, the following year he's actually going to be the world champion and wrestling in one of the main events. So that's pretty crazy. How far his career progressed from here to there. But look, this match, it is one of the most famous WWF matches of all time. It's not the first ladder match, as they always like to say. Not even close. Not even the first ladder match that these two had to get. Like, I know that someday you'll probably get chatting with Bjorn or do a talk about it. But look, it's just one of those things where there has been many ladder matches before this one. But in the revisionist history of the WWF, they do like to claim that this was the first ever ladder match. So we'll let them away with it
on a
for
big event,
tonight.
and it's a pay-per-view, and they say it's the first of something that's they always do that. They always say this is the first time under the Giants with body slam, but it's the first time like that year by that particular guy, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they love doing that type of stuff. But look, that controversy aside, it's a spectacular match. It's an iconic match. And for a lot of people, as far as they knew, it was the first time they'd ever done a ladder match. So
they're always trying to expand the audience. The people, so for a non-wrestling audience, for the casual audience, it's the first match for them.
Exactly. And look, it's a great back and forth match. Once again, just like with Brad and Owen, I'm not going to go through the match blow by blow, but it's an excellent match. They really make use of the ladder as not just a tool to climb to go and get the belt, but also as a weapon that can be used to bludgeon and batter your opponent. And unlike modern day ladder matches, which became synonymous with crazy
Edge.
stunts and going through tables and falling from higher and higher heights. This match is still it's as logical as it can be given the stipulation, and both men just really know how to work the ladder and make every move count. And anytime someone takes a fall, it really means something. And
Yeah,
they just
I
really
was
end up
watching.
having a classic match.
I watched all Mania 10 yesterday, and then after that, I was watching. I think it was SummerSlam around '98 or something like that. The one that had Rock and Triple H had a ladder match, and then after that, there was a Taker Stone Cold match, and that was also a reasonable ladder match. But the difference here, you got this nice tall aluminium ladder, and then the match of the Rock Triple H one, both of them very large, tall people. They're nearly as tall as the ladder, and it's like, oh, you're climbing like one step. It's like it's not as exciting because it's just like you've got one step and you're at the top of the ladder because you're so tall.
And this match, obviously as fans we love it, and as mentioned, it's one of those famous WWF matches. It's iconic. It's a match that they will continuously go back to and revisit and kind of lord over as being a big deal, and it is a big deal. But this match was not without its controversy at the time, because supposedly they run way over time in this match. They're given cues by the referee
Really,
to end the
I'm
match,
glad
but
they did
they
run
just
over time because it's it becomes like the highlight of the show. Really, this is the Brett
yeah,
match.
it really is a coin toss as to is it the Bret and Owen match or is it this match? And that's what's so great about this show, is that you have these two iconic matches both on the same card. It's such a big deal to have that. But one person who was not happy with this match running long was Randy Savage. And when the two
Yeah.
guys got backstage, he gave out shit to them. And the reason he gave out to them was because there was supposed to be a 10-man tag match also on this show
Oh,
that
so
had
they
to be
cut
cut
something.
off. So they had to cut that match in the night. Now,
I'm glad
I'm a
they
little
did
bit
because
disappointed.
how long was that going to run with that many people, and what were you going to do with it
Yes,
to
yeah.
squish that in?
And they would end up giving the match away on Raw anyway for free. They ended up putting the match on Raw a couple of
Mhm.
weeks later. Now, I am a little bit disappointed, I have to say, because if that 10-man tag had went ahead, it would have been the in-ring debut of my favorite wrestler, the 1-2-3 Kid, because he was one of
Oh,
the
really?
10 participants
Yeah.
that were supposed to be in the match. Unfortunately, the match was cut, so we didn't get to see him. But look, like we were saying, at least we ended up getting the classic ladder match. And as Johnny
And I
said,
do
what
notice,
would really have happened in the 10-man tag?
like the runtime, they're more consistently sticking to around 2 hours 43 minutes is often about the time of these now, compared to your 3.5 hour bloats. And like yesterday, I was watching this, I watched some SummerSlam, then I watched, I think it was Wrestle War 1992, something like that from WCW stuff. And that was also around 2 hours 43 minutes because I was watching on the networks. That's how I noticed these times. So I'm thinking that it must have been the cable providers and that really pushing, saying, stick to your fucking times you're telling us, or you're going to get cut off.
And well, look, I mentioned this before when we've reviewed the other manias. I will always prefer watching a show that's under 3 hours when it comes to a
Yeah,
wrestling event. Anything over that's just a little bit too much for me. I tend to lose concentration and just stop paying attention
I
to a
do
lot of what I
too. But having said that, on Saturdays, sometimes I'll sit and watch like 3 or 4 events in a row, like classic stuff, 80s, 90s stuff, if I've got nothing else on. Because on a weekday, I fall asleep, I haven't got time. On a weekend, I can just put one thing on after another, and I've probably had too much caffeine, and I'm sitting up to midnight and watch like six or 8 hours of wrestling in a row.
But the finish to this ladder match is very inventive as well. Shawn, he falls from the ladder and gets his foot caught in the rope he's kind of tangled up,
Yeah,
which
it's all tangled up.
gives Razor time to climb up the ladder and retrieve both belts, and thus making himself the undisputed Intercontinental Champion.
Like
So it's
Andre or
great.
Mankind, he gets tangled up pretty well and convincingly. He's like, "Oh, I can't get out of here and I can't reach." And Razor's like, "Oh no, I'm exhausted and can I climb up the ladder?" They really sell the drama quite well. And I like some of these later falls and that they take. We get a pole driver there, and the ladder right before the end, one of the last falls, it actually buckles quite seriously to the point you think, can they still climb that bloody ladder? Is it
Yes.
going to break on them? Where it's aluminium, so
Yeah.
soft metal, but it really noticeably buckles. And then when they stand it up again, like that thing's really crooked.
Yeah, very crooked towards the end. They were lucky it lasted. I'm assuming, well, who knows? They might not have had a spare ladder under the ring. These days, they always have loads of ladders.
Well,
Just in
aluminium
case.
does bend like that. It takes a fair bit to actually break something. Even if like one step broke, the rest of it would still be intact, you know? Like,
What's funny here, though, we see after the match, you've got a little screenshot of Jeff Jarrett with his sparkly glasses doing an interview. The interview he's doing is about who's going
I
to be
love
the
the
captain.
sparkly glasses. They were flashing on and off, and I had to go frame by frame to get it with the turned dogs.
The premise of this interview is that that he's trying to decide which member of the team is going to be the captain for the 10-man tag. So it's funny that they're
Ah,
playing this
yeah, now the segment
interview
makes
now.
more sense because I just assumed that we're promoting for some other event or something because there's like all these guys and it's like a Survivor Series segment. Everyone's just like yelling and arguing at once, and I don't know what's happening.
Well, look, if anybody is interested to see the 10-man tag, go just look up the Raw from 2 weeks after the show. It's on it. It's
Uh-huh.
okay. It's all right. Like the ladder match is still a trillion billion times better. So you know we got what we got, and I'm happy for it. But we also got a nice little interaction between the $1 million man and the fake Bill Clinton. Yeah, money, 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 money. That's all they ever talk about in this house. Because we're getting to the big finale now. We're about to undo we're about to make right the wrong that was done at the end of WrestleMania 9. We covered WrestleMania 9 a couple of months ago. It ended on a real damp farce of an ending with Hulk
Yeah,
Hogan beating
a
Yokozuna.
non-match or a non-ending, and then a non-entity of Hogan running in and like, "Yeah, I'm the champion again. Bye. I got to go and do TV and movies and pay myself money or whatever he's doing."
You know, at the time we remarked the wrestling gods were angry. It got very cloudy all of a sudden in Las Vegas. You know,
Yeah.
people were just
And
not
it
too
starts
happy.
off very fun though with Macho Man and the togas and the Egyptian stuff and Caesar's Palace and Bobby Heenan getting pantsed. But it starts off very fun and then it just definitely goes downhill.
But here we Brett making his entrance, and look, as you can see, as is evidenced by the sign in the crowd, that there is a real groundswell of support for Brett
Yeah.
to
I love
win
this
the
kid passing
championship
the
back.
invisible football to him. Like it's just
Yeah,
out of reach. Just out of reach. And I love that logo, which you would often see on Raw. You'd see that like the multi rainbow color one just looks so cool. And it's tiny. It's only just bigger than his head. I like these little ones, the big gigantic stadium filling stuff.
yeah, I just love the entrance for this show. It really just really works so well. But yeah, the crowd are really behind Brett. They're dying for him to win this match.
You get
And
some highlights like Anvil. He's doing the sharpshooter on Ric Flair and highlights. And he's showing him beating like every major guy, in recent months and whatever.
yeah, they're really putting the the fucking whole push behind him just to say, look, this is our guy, this is our man, this is the leader of the new generation. And he's going out here. It's the second time he's wrestled tonight. He's already had a classic match to open the show, and now he's going to wrestle for the WWF Championship. And if Luger had won earlier, it would have been Luger versus Brett, but Luger
Yeah.
lost. So we're getting Yokozuna versus Brett, and this is a much better match than they had at the end of WrestleMania 9. In my opinion, there's a lot more life and energy to it, even though both people have already wrestled during the night. So it's commendable to them that they're able to go out and actually put on a performance to this caliber. We should also mention as well that we've a very, very special guest referee for this match, which is Roddy Piper. So it's great to see Mr. Piper back on our
Rowdy
screens
one.
here. Yeah, good old Hot Rod. He's back and better than ever. Well, maybe not better than ever, but he is back. And of course, Jimmy Cornette is here as well again.
I was just thinking as I was watching this yesterday with Piper, like not long after this, in the next couple of years, we'll see him like very run down and pot bellied, and then he's getting the bloody surgeries and hips and other stuff, like not in good shape at all. But here he's older. You can see he's a bit out of shape, but he actually looks trim, if anything. He hasn't gotten to that point yet. So he still looks like he's a bit spry, he can move around. It looks like a dude who used to work out who's a bit out of shape and, semi-retired and that. But he still looks quite healthy. And it kind of breaks my heart a bit when you see his deterioration after his bloody surgeries and other stuff he had, especially on some of those bloody nitros where he's got visible scars all the way down his leg. He's just had surgery. He wasn't supposed to be in the ring, let alone wrestling, and they started beating the hell out of him. And we had surgery like in the previous 24 hours.
Yeah, he goes through a lot during that period. And look, we'll get to see one more classic Mania match out of Piper before we're said and done doing our reviews. But we'll get there when we get there. But here he gives a strong showing. Of course, it's great to see him interacting with Jim Cornette and punishing Jim Cornette for interfering. He punches him right in the face to,
It's a big slap. It's a big like, it's so good. And, I love it because it's like, Jim Cornette, you're nothing. I'm not going to punch you. I'm just going to slap you. And Cornette does a really nice bump. He does that delayed reaction and then he goes, whoa, and really throws himself back.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And look, we got a nice back and forth match between Bret and Yoko. Now, obviously, it's not going to live up to the opening match between Bret and Owen, and it's not going to live up to the ladder match between Razor and Shawn, but it is still a good, fun match. And of course, it ends with Bret actually beating Yoko to become champion, which just sends the crowd into a frenzy. They are delighted that their man has finally won the big one back. And there's a really, really nice moment, which was apparently Macho Man's idea to make good on the cancelled 10-man tag, is that he told all the baby faces that were supposed to be in that match basically to run out and hoist Bret up on their shoulders. So we do actually get to see my favorite, the 1-2-3 kid, actually does make his on-screen WrestleMania debut here because he's one of the guys holding Bret up.
Yeah, I picked him. Who's the guy in green though?
That is Bob Holly, the man who would go on to become
I couldn't figure out who
Holly.
was in green. Because you don't quite see his face very well in the thing. It's a bit blurry, the distance. And everyone else I could work out as they turn around, but couldn't see who it was.
So everybody comes out, and, Luger comes out, and we think there's going to be a bit of a showdown between Lex and Bret, but they actually shake hands, and, the better man won and all that. But we do see, watching from the aisleway, is Owen Hart, the jealous brother.
Like a villain.
Yes, and he's
been watching. You, brother.
He's going to get him. He's going to get that championship from him, Well, he's going to try at least. And so it's great. It's just one of those things where everything on this Mania just came together so well. And I know, like, while we were talking, there was probably about 4 or 5 matches where we hardly talked about it all. But believe me, folks, those matches were only like 2 or 3 minute matches. They were really short.
The one with the earthquake was like so short that they barely had time to even say anything on the commentator. It's done and they're gone.
The real meaty matches on this one are Bret versus Owen, Luger versus Yoko, Shawn versus Razor, and then Bret versus Yoko. So, like, there's the rest of the matches, it's okay that they're there, but it's the 2 world title matches and the brother versus brother and the ladder match it's what draws you in and what makes this a special event. It's a landmark event. It's 10 years in the making. I know I keep repeating that, but my God, they repeat it so much on the show that you can't help but repeat it. It just it burns the phrase into your mind, So yeah, WrestleMania X, WrestleMania.
Yeah, they like that one so much that Sony put that on the controllers for the PlayStation. They must have liked this event quite a bit.
But yeah, so how did you feel about this one? I imagine you felt that it was an easier watch than the last WrestleMania we
Oh
reviewed.
yeah, at least they got to have like I'm no fan of Yokozuna, but at least they got to have an actual match this time after last year's debacle where virtually nothing happens, and then the running from Hogan and all the nonsense like this. I enjoyed the antics and the story more than the match itself. I like that we've got Mr. Fuji there, we've got Jim Cornette there, and the ridiculous, amazing outfit. Apparently, that clip you sent me from the podcast, apparently picked it up at some like second-hand shop, and then they got the professional costuming people at the wrestling to like fix up all the nice bits to make it all glitzy looking and that. So I just love it. It's such a like over the top costume that suits the event. But I love the storytelling. I love knowing the backstory of we know Piper and Brett are like kind of different age, but they've known each other a long time and got that family history sort of thing in Canada and whatnot. And the Cornette too, like the history of him, like going all back through the Southern Territories and that, and all your bloody Midnight Express and all that, and Heavily Bodies. It's cool just to see the kind of continuity of these other, both the in-ring story, but the outside the ring real life story that leads up to these things.
Yeah, and it's really nice. Obviously, Jim Cornette, he had his famous runs down south, but it is nice to see that in the WWF he was also top tier as well when it came to managing main event talent. And it's probably, I'm sure he'd have to consider this one of the highlights of his career, to be in front of a sold out Madison Square Garden and being in the closing moments of the show. So even though he got slapped around by Piper, he loved it because he loves Piper as well. So he probably had a great time bumping around for him. And it is a kind of real, like almost feel good, Rocky-ish moment to see Brett hoisted up on everybody's shoulders and
it's a good
waving the
moment.
belt. Like it's a
And
happy
I like
moment.
and right towards the bottom right of the screen there, but towards the end of the match, Yokozuna climbs on the ropes to go to do his like kind of butt splash thing, like Rikishi style, onto Brett, but then he like pauses and does this stumble and falls backwards, and when you watch it, it looks like Piper had wiggled the rope and caused a trip. But when I went back and rewatched it and I looked at it, he's just, they've framed it so he looks like it. He doesn't actually touch it at all, like, I mean, on purpose. But if you were on the other side of the ring watching that, you'd be convinced. Like, if you're on one side, you'd be, oh, Piper screwed him and that's why he lost. Whereas if you're on that side, you'd be going, no, it was fair. Yokozuna stuffed up and he fell down. It's clever storytelling. Like,
yeah, and Yoku, he pulls I keep saying Yoku instead of Yoko, but
Yuku,
he pulls this.
you can do it.
He pulls this great phase. It looks like his eyes are going to pop out of his head. He's there about to
Yeah, it's
fall.
really
He's like
good.
waving
Really
his
good.
arms, like
Yeah. And the first time I watched it,
great
I
moment.
went Piper, because they kind of cut away, and I went Piper wiggled the rope and then he fell. I went back and I watched it again and went, no, he didn't. He's actually just standing like he's about to. He's thinking about it, but he doesn't actually do it.
Yeah, I know it's great times. It's just a great Mania, and yeah, I was delighted to go back and watch it. I know when WrestleMania 11 comes up, but it's one of, I don't like it half as much as this Mania, so it'll be a little bit more of a slog to get through. But no, it was a great moment here. Yeah, we see a few of the wrestlers from backstage. Of course, Macho Man is there in the background as well. Got the 1-2-3 Kid. We got Bob Holly. We got that lady whose name I can't remember, but she was schmoozing with the celebrities earlier on in the evening. I can't remember her name, but she was one of those C grade celebrities they had there on the
Yeah,
night.
do you know what's funny?
Backstage.
Earlier in the show, you get Burt Reynolds comes out with the blonde lady, or I know the boob lady or whatever, because I make a point of really kind of lingering on it, and I have no idea who she is. And then later on the show, we get Jenny Garth from 90210 walks him out towards this match, and you don't see her before or after this. And was she just
She just
there? Or was she
disappears.
actually a guest? Or it's weird, quite
Yeah,
strange.
it is weird. Yeah, you never see her again. And look, I suppose when we do get to Mania 11, we'll talk more about it. But even though this seems like a real changing of the guard finally, and Brett's our man, and Brett's going to be the man leading us into the future, by the time we get to next year, that won't actually be the case. So
Whoops.
we'll chat to you about that. Don't worry. And Bam Bam, what a difference a year makes for Bam Bam. You went from being in a
Well, he's
mixed
wearing
tag
blue
to
now.
yeah, he's wearing blue. He's going to be fighting a football player.
And they love getting their guest football players on the bloody wrestling.
Well, without spoiling too much about WrestleMania 11, it's actually a surprisingly good match between Bam Bam and Lawrence Taylor. Like it's kind of shocking that he was able to pull a match out of a guy who's not trained at all. So we'll get to that. We'll get chatting about that. It's going to be an interesting discussion.
Mm-hmm. The old Coliseum video exclusive countdown to WrestleMania 11.
Of course, we've got two unbelievably handsome individuals here to see us off as well. Michael Bine and Don Johnson, two studs.
80s avatars.
Oh yeah, love these guys. Love them. And look, love the WrestleMania 10. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to us talk about Mania 10. And if you watched it, let us know. If you liked it, let us know. If you hated it, let us know. We're always curious to know
Yeah,
these
post
things.
a comment, leave a like or a sub. If you get enough likes and subs, eventually get your stamps, get a free sub. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, exactly. The company will, of course, record any information that you write in the comments and use it against you later on. But don't worry
Yes.
about that at all. Leave
They
your
will
comments.
track
Don't
you.
think about
They
it.
will advertise you to strange products from China and bootleg wrestling figures, perhaps.
Perhaps, but we guarantee nothing. We promise nothing and we deliver nothing.
That's it.
Good show.
But yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm going to play the outro.
Take care, folks.
So
See you next week.
that's time.